In a world already teetering on the edge of chaos, two nations stare at one another with a gaze heavy with suspicion, pride, and fear. A nuclear deal, once hailed as a triumph of diplomacy, lies in ruins. What was meant to be restraint has become the prelude to tension, a warning that the thin threads of peace can unravel in an instant. In Tehran, ministers and military commanders convene behind closed doors, their voices low but urgent. Words chosen with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. They speak of national honor, of survival, of the right to defend themselves against a world that has repeatedly sought to contain their ambitions. Each gesture, each nod, carries meaning far beyond the room, reaching into the minds of millions who wait silently, anxiously, for the next signal of calm or catastrophe. Thousands of miles away in Washington, the atmosphere is no less charged. Ambassadors, strategists, generals, and politicians debate endlessly. Every phrase in every statement is analyzed, every tweet scrutinized, every movement in the Middle East tracked with near obsessive attention. Advisors whisper of options, contingency plans, and worst-case scenarios. No one dares to underestimate the other. Each leader weighs not only their own nation's strength, but also the ripple effects across the globe. The collapse of the deal is not merely a diplomatic failure. It is a fracture in the foundation of global trust, a signal that when ambition and fear collide, the world itself becomes fragile. Public statements are careful yet ominous, designed to project strength while concealing uncertainty. Social media amplifies fear. Analysts project doomsday scenarios. Ordinary people watch with rising dread, sensing that the world they knew, the predictable rhythms of daily life, might already be slipping into chaos. The stakes are enormous. The region is heavily armed, and each side knows the devastating potential of miscalculation. Military assets are repositioned, intelligence satellites track the smallest shifts, and whispers of escalation spread faster than official announcements. Then, in early 2026, the unthinkable happens. Targeted strikes hit Iranian territory, eliminating high-ranking figures and shaking the nation to its core. The retaliation is swift. Iranian forces respond with precise strikes against foreign assets in the region. Every action sparks a reaction. The conflict escalates not as a single event, but as a chain, relentless, unpredictable, and terrifying in its speed. The world watches, horrified, as political rhetoric escalates alongside military action. International organizations call for calm, but the channels of diplomacy are clogged with distrust, pride, and the weight of historical grievances. Hardliners in Tehran call openly for accelerated nuclear development, framing it as a necessary deterrent, a shield against existential threats. Moderates plead for dialogue, warning that nuclear escalation could ignite a conflict that no one can control. In Washington, policy debates rage. Some argue for a show of force, believing that hesitation is weakness. Others insist that restraint and engagement are the only ways to prevent disaster. In capitals across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, governments convene emergency sessions. Strategists model scenarios, some terrifyingly plausible. Economic markets react instantly. Oil surges, trade slows, investments falter, and uncertainty ripples into every corner of global life. Civilians in conflict zones experience fear in its rawest form. Families pack bags, schools close, hospitals brace for surges. The human cost begins even before bullets fly, before bombs drop. And yet, the world cannot look away. Fear and curiosity intertwine, driving millions to follow every report, every headline, every statement from leaders with the gravity of life or death stakes. The psychological tension is as real as the physical threat. People sleep with one ear on the news. Every phone alert a potential omen. Social media amplifies panic and rumor, often faster than verified information can arrive. Amidst the chaos, stories of courage and ingenuity emerge. Diplomats secretly communicate. Hackers attempt to prevent catastrophic attacks. Ordinary citizens take extraordinary measures to protect themselves. The shadow of war stretches across continents. Every calculation carries consequences not just for Iran and the United States, but for alliances, economies, and the delicate equilibrium that holds nations together. Yet, even as tension rises, uncertainty remains. Every moment could tip the balance. Every choice could prevent or provoke catastrophe. The possibility of a broader war is no longer theoretical. Scholars, journalists, and historians warn that the world has not faced such a precarious alignment of power, pride, and nuclear capability in decades. The human element cannot be underestimated. Fear drives decisions, anger influences strategy, and mistrust dictates policy. Leaders are bound by perception as much as reality, and perception can be as deadly as any weapon. Civilian life is in flux. Cities adapt to emergency protocols. Families divide assets, evacuate, or prepare for contingencies that no one should ever face. Children grow up in a world where uncertainty is constant and trust is scarce. Global communication networks hum with tension. Analysts pass the minutiae of every movement. Satellites beam back images. Drones patrol borders. And intelligence agencies work around the clock to prevent surprises. Yet the unpredictability of human choice remains a constant threat. This is not a story of villains and heroes, but of nations, individuals, and the fragile chain of decisions that separates stability from disaster. Every message sent, every action taken, every silence held carries weight. And in the middle of this tension, the question that haunts the world becomes unavoidable. How close are we to the edge? How thin is the thread that holds civilization back from an abyss? The shadows of war lengthen, casting doubt and fear across continents. And yet, even in the darkest hours, the possibility of reason, diplomacy, and survival persists, flickering like a fragile light in a storm. Humanity waits, uncertain, fearful, but still hoping. The collapse of the nuclear deal is not the end of the story. It is a warning, a turning point, a challenge. The decisions made in the following days, weeks, and months will determine not just the fate of nations, but the fate of the world itself. The clock ticks. Leaders calculate. Civilians pray. The planet watches, silent and unblinking, as history hangs in the balance. One misstep, one misjudged signal, one moment of hubris, and the consequences could be unimaginable. And so the narrative unfolds, relentless, unbroken, a testament to both the fragility and the resilience of humanity. In the shadows of nuclear ambition, in the echoes of broken agreements, in the tension of global uncertainty, the world stands at the precipice. The only certainty is that nothing will ever be the same again, and that the story is still being written, second by second, heartbeat by heartbeat, with every eye turned toward the horizon, waiting for the light of reason, the whisper of diplomacy, and the hope that humanity can survive its own ambitions.